All right, you want to hear a sane story? Check this out. Protesters of Cop City slapped with terrorism charges. What? Yeah. Protesters at Atlanta, Cop City, get terrorism charges. Whoa. Let's get to it.
I've been charged with terrorism. I kid you not. Let's put up the picture full mass of the location I'm talking about. And then I'll get
Here's
to
the location.
the background. A joint law enforcement operation was conducted at the future site of a police training center in Atlanta, Georgia. On Tuesday, to clear the protest encampment, they came out. They got all of these cops to clear out the encampment. You're looking at part of it right there, okay?
Here's another
Looks like
picture.
terrorism to you? The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, announced Wednesday arrest for 5 people over clashes the previous day at the encampment protesting at future Atlanta Police and Fire Training Center that opponents have dubbed Cop City. The 5 are all charged with domestic terrorism.
Whoa.
In addition to other charges, the GBI said. In a release, the Bureau said a joint task force went to the site on Tuesday to remove barricades blocking some of the entrances to the site and were met by some of the protesters who allegedly threw rocks at police cars and attacked EMTs outside the neighboring fire stations.
EMTs
with
means
rocks
emergency medical
Now, this is
vehicle.
an important point to pause. Here's why. I've spoken directly to some of the protesters who are there. They've been there for a year, by the way. They've been there for a year. Many of them are living on the property to protect the Greenland. They would like to see it utilized for a more appropriate reason. This is protest. Remember, Atlanta is the city of Dr. King.
Yeah.
We are a protest city.
Martin Luther
I'm
King.
in the city of Atlanta myself. I oppose this cop city that has been promoted, proclaimed, and protected by Atlanta City Council. Now, those who are objecting to it, they are noble people. They are.
Yeah.
They're not saying, well, we know for sure this person did this and this person did that. They went and arrested individuals and said, oh, well, you know, people are throwing rocks. And, well, did that person throw a rock at you? Did that individual make an aggressive move toward you? There's more. In a release, the Bureau said a joint task force went to the site on Tuesday to remove barricades blocking some of the entrances. So what are they there for? To remove barricades to the site, and were met with some of the protesters who allegedly threw rocks, etc. Now, let's highlight the picture of the police presence in the parking lot.
Check this out.
The Bureau said they were there to remove the barricades. Great. All right. That's how you gain entry.
Okay. Yeah.
A blog, however, associated with the movement reported last month the protesters had cleared some trees to block access to a portion of the South River Forest area, and they've said is used by police as a shooting range. Several other forms of barriers have been erected to block access to parts of the site at varying points. There have been several clashes between the protesters and police or other city service employees this year, including as recently as a few days ago with the CAB 5 personnel. 11 Alive's Doug Richards also reported last month on a Dallas mechanic who said he was accosted at the site while in the area looking for junk he could refurbish. The foundation says under a plan approved by the Atlanta City Council that it will build on 85 acres of the site and preserve the remaining 180 acres as green space. Now, let me tell you what the narrative is. They're saying, oh, well, you know, we've had all kind of crime, carjackings, theft, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. That's literally in the actual press release from the state of Georgia. Now, here's why that's ridiculous. Because the people who are protesting are not carjacking. I'm not saying crime does not happen in that general area, but to correlate that crime to the protest is insanity. But people are buying it. People are believing it. How many individuals have been arrested who carjacked someone in that area and they were also protesters?
None.
How many individuals have been arrested for criminality against another resident of that local community, and they happen to also be protesters? How many? Zero.
Zero.
Not one.
Not one.
So it is obviously a stretch.
You know, I think it's a far stretch too. When the cops out there, you know, labeling protesters to people that are carjacking, committing thieves, robberies, you know, even rapes out there. That's a huge far stretch going from that to that. Really crazy.
To connect those two dynamics in one.
That'd be like a cop, you know, accusing someone who does a little B&E of attempted murder. You know, that's a far stretch. Like I did a story about a guy who got picked up and arrested for petty theft. Yeah, he was shoplifting, got petty theft. Then he got labeled a rapist. See, there's the connection right there. There's the connection right there.
Sentence. There's more. The protesters have opposed the facility on environmental and historical grounds. Let's get into it. Saying that it would decimate one of the largest preserved forest areas in the city and desecrate historically Native American land of the Muskogee Creek people who once lived in the woods and called it the Walani Forest before being displaced by white settlers. This happened in the 19th century. They also opposed it on the grounds that the land once was the site of something called the Old Prison Farm. This was a complex that was built during its operation in the mid-20th century as an honor farm, all right?
Honor farm.
Where prisoners farmed the land as a dignified means of imprisonment, a practice which has since been scrutinized for its profit generation and exploitation of unpaid labor. Atlanta police have characterized the tree sitters occupying the forest as outsiders, though there has also been visible local opposition from community groups. I am one of those visible opposers to what they're doing. So look at the contextualization. One, well, these protesters are criminals. Yeah, carjackings and the like.
Robberies or rapists or murders.
They threw rocks at us. People threw rocks at us, so we had to arrest everybody. Three, they're actually outsiders. They have nothing to do with the city of Atlanta. Look at all these variations of the narrative in order to get you to dismiss the protest, in order to get you to dehumanize the individuals and their actual plight. Remember, they were charged with terrorism. Those who stormed the U.S. Capitol, were they
here we go.
with
Yep,
terrorism?
good point.
Of course
January
not.
6th.
Now, that's terrorism.
That's terrorism.
These protesters are engaged in civil disobedience. That sometimes will land you in jail. We get it. That happens. Sometimes it's part of it. But to charge them with being a terrorist, when we literally had terrorists try to overthrow the government and they never received those charges, is insane.
Yeah. Then you have people in the Capitol January 6th that were trying to break down the Capitol because people were bitching because all those motherfuckers that broke in the Capitol were pissed off that Biden won and Trump lost. So people were bitching about, well, we got to stop the steal or the election's fake. Those motherfuckers that broke in there, and including, but not limited to, Ashley Babbitt, even though she died, but she was a domestic terrorist herself.
All right. This is the thoughts here.
I mean, it's continuing, like, honestly, criminalizing protesters and criminalizing the left generally, and especially if you're trying to preserve any kind of environmental and any kind of piece of the environment. You care about a forest, you're an eco-terrorist. These charges have been developing ever since the 2001 war on terror began, and we all knew that these same things.
Well, you know, it's like not just like eco-terror. You got people sitting there saying, well, people that hate the government or the cops out there, well, people say, oh, they're domestic terror or they're sovereign citizens. No, they're just pissed off people. They're sick and tired of the lying corruption and the government and the police. They're not sovereign citizens or people that love trees and plants or they're eco-terrorism. That's crazy.
Things were going to come home to roost. So the terrorism wasn't just about, religious extremists from abroad. It was about actual social justice organizers in this country, grassroots organizers, people who are fighting against a cop city. And it's so ironic, right, that they're like, oh, no, we need this entire cop city to work on cop training. Meanwhile, they can't handle a bunch of protesters outside of the cop city. Don't you think, like just practice here by actually engaging with people rather than locking them up, rather than arresting them and charging them with terrorism. And again, Georgia is a changing state, but this is what Brian Kemp loves. Like, this is the stuff, and he was lauding the arrest of the protesters. And so I think that the movement that Stacey Abrams and others have begun, it is not over. It is a long slog, but I hope that it reverses things like putting millions of taxpayer dollars in Georgia into something like a cop city.
Yeah. I think it's just crazy as well. I mean, they're going to take a piece of land like the forest and trees like that. They want to turn to a cop city for training. What? They didn't go any place else to go. Anyways, I'm out here. My job. Peace out.